Welcome to the deep dive. You know, usually when we walk through our day, we treat life a lot like a giant catalog.
Oh, absolutely. We're just constantly swiping, analyzing, and, categorizing everything.
Right. Like you look at a weather app just to extract data about the temperature. Or you look at a barista entirely to just, well, get your coffee.
Yeah, or you read an article just to pull out the bullet points.
Exactly. We have become absolute experts at experiencing the world. Like, we absorb it, we use it, we figure it out, and then we just move on.
I mean, it is the default mode of modern survival. We accumulate all these experiences and basically build this massive, highly efficient database of reality in our minds.
But then you encounter a thinker who looks at all that efficiency, all that endless experiencing, and asks a totally radical question. Like, are you actually meeting the world, or are you just using it?
And that is the core of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, that is the mission of today's deep dive.
Yeah.
So today we are looking at your stack of sources, which includes excerpts from Martin Buber's original 1923 philosophical text, I and Thou.
Plus Ronald Gregor Smith's translator introduction.
Right, and a collection of your own notes to help contextualize the massive impact this really slender little book had on theology, philosophy, and just so much more.
We should probably set the stage right away, honestly, because the year 1923 is not just some random piece of trivia here. It's really the mechanism driving the entire philosophy.
So post-World War I.
Exactly. Think about what was happening then. The world was just coming out of the catastrophic, fully mechanized meat grinder of World War I.
Right.
Industrialization was rapidly turning human beings into literal cogs in factory machines. So, when you hear the phrase philosophical religious poem, you might brace yourself for something completely disconnected from reality.
Like somebody just sitting on a mountain ignoring the real world.
Yeah, but as the translator points out, this is the higher mysticism. Buber isn't telling people to escape into some illusory realm.
He's actually looking right at a society that is mechanizing the human soul, right?
Totally. And he's offering a way to find real, profound communion right here in the present responsible world.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because Buber basically argues that we're fundamentally getting the world wrong, or at least like we are missing half of it.
We're only seeing one side of the coin.
Right. And to explain how, he says we have to look at the architecture of our reality, which he says is built on two primary words, or well, rather, two postures that represent fundamentally different ways we can exist.
Right, the ways we approach the world around us.
Exactly. So the first attitude is what Buber calls I-it, or I-he, or I-she.
Yeah, and the specific pronoun doesn't actually matter as much as the cognitive posture itself. The I-it world is the world of objects.
Like things we interact with.
Right. When you're in the I-it mode, you are a subject looking at an object. And the defining mechanism of an it is that it's bounded by other things.
Bounded. So it exists in like a grid of space and time.
Exactly. You can measure it, you can list its qualities, and you can map out its utility.
So it's defined by what it is not. Like, I might say this table is made of wood. It's 3 feet high. It is next to the chair.
Yes, you are boxing it in. And then Buber introduces the second primary word, which is I-thou.
The famous I-thou.
Right. This is the world of relation. Here, the bounds just disappear entirely.
Wait, disappear entirely?
Yeah. Buber says that when you say thou, you actually have no thing as your object. You aren't looking at a collection of qualities anymore. You are stepping into a mutual meeting with your whole being.
Okay, let me see if I can ground this in a modern workplace analogy. So it is when I look at a coworker and I purely perceive their utility.
They are a means to an end.
Right. They are the person who delivers the quarterly report. They're good at Excel. They're occasionally late to meetings. Basically, I am analyzing them.
You are experiencing an object within a network of other objects and tasks. You're basically keeping them safely in the catalog we talked about earlier.
Okay, but then maybe one day we're having a conversation and suddenly the spreadsheet just falls away.
Right.
Like, I am not thinking about their deliverables at all.
Right.
I am just entirely present with them. I am confronting them as a complete, infinite human being. That is the I-thou moment.
Yes, exactly.
Wait, and this is where I actually need some clarification. Does that mean the I is the exact same in both scenarios, and I've just kind of, changed my perspective on the coworker? Like, am I just flipping a mental switch?
What's fascinating here is Buber insists the answer is a definitive no.
Really?
Yeah, the I is not the same at all. He argues that the I of humanity is actually twofold.
Oh,
The I that says I. It is literally a different entity than the I that says I, thou.
So wait, I am fundamentally a different me depending on how I am looking at you.
Yes, and the translator's introduction highlights how revolutionary this was for philosophy at the time. I mean, think back to Descartes.
I think, therefore I am.
Right. For centuries, philosophy just assumed I was essentially a brain in a jar. Just this static, isolated observer sitting inside your head, looking out at a closed system of causes and effects.
Just processing data.
Exactly. But Karl Heim, a thinker who's mentioned in the introduction, points out that Buber's idea completely shatters that old monistic system. Buber essentially shifts the whole paradigm to, I relate, therefore I am.
Man, that completely reworks human identity. Like, we don't exist in a vacuum at all. We are activated by our relationships.
Precisely.
So if I am treating everything around me as a tool to be used, my I shrinks down to a mere functional point.
Yeah.
But when I step into I-thou, my I expands and becomes whole.
Exactly. You only become a true person through relation. The I isn't a static object. It is an event.
Okay, so if I-thou is the only thing that makes us fully human, where do we actually find it out in the wild?
Well, Buber outlines 3 specific spheres where this relation happens.
Like, the first sphere is our life with nature. And the relation here, as he beautifully puts it, sways in gloom beneath the level of speech.
He uses this famous example of a tree. Normally, looking at a tree is the ultimate 8 experience.
Yeah, you look at it, you recognize it's an oak, you note the green of the leaves.
You might understand its chemical composition or how it turns sunlight into energy through photosynthesis. You're breaking the tree down into manageable data points.
But Buber argues there's a completely different mechanism available. You can be drawn into a relation with the tree where it's no longer just a biological machine.
Right.
It becomes, quote, bodied over against me. It's a mutual relation, confronting the wholeness of the tree with the wholeness of your being, without any analyzing getting in the way.
Which sounds mystical, but it's really just profound presence.
But let's pivot for a second. Because having a mutual relation with a silent tree is one thing. What happens when the object of your attention can actually talk back to you?
Well, that moves us into the second sphere, which is our life with men, human interaction. Here, the relation is open, and it takes the form of speech.
And this is where Buber makes a claim that really stopped me in my tracks, because it runs counter to literally everything modern culture tells us.
The part about love.
Yes. He states that love is not a feeling.
Which is wild, right? Because we are entirely conditioned to think of love as an internal emotional state. If you feel warm and fuzzy about someone, boom, you're in love.
Right. But Buber explains the mechanism differently. Feelings, he says, are just things we entertain. They live inside us.
They're just internal data.
Exactly. But love comes to pass. It happens between people. And he uses this incredible example of Jesus from the Christian tradition to illustrate the mechanics of this.
Yeah, that's a really striking example in the text.
He points out that Jesus presumably had completely different internal feelings for a violently ill demoniac than he had for his closest beloved disciple.
Oh, for sure. The accompanying emotions like disgust or sorrow versus deep affection were vastly different.
But the love was exactly the same. Because love, in Buber's framework, isn't the emotion at all. Love is the I-thou relation itself.
It is the whole being affirming the whole being of the other person.
Wow.
It completely frames love as cosmic responsibility rather than just an emotional indulgence.
Okay, and that brings us to the third sphere, which, to be honest, might be the most abstract. Our life with intelligible forms. Basically the realm of art and creation.
Yeah, it gets a little heady here.
I really struggled with this one. The text says it's a realm where relation doesn't use speech, but it begets it. You feel adrift by a form. Like, how does that actually work in practice?
Okay, let's ground it in a concrete analogy. Imagine a sculptor standing in front of a block of uncarved marble.
Okay, I can picture that.
In the I-it mode, the sculptor just sees a heavy rock with a certain density and maybe a certain market value.
Just material.
Right. But in the I-thou mode, the sculptor actually meets a form waiting inside the marble. The form addresses them, it demands to be realized, and the sculptor answers by chiseling, thinking, and acting.
Oh, wow.
They basically speak the primary word with their entire being, bringing art into the world.
That actually makes perfect sense. So the art isn't just an output or a product. It's a mutual conversation with inspiration.
Exactly. So we have nature, men, and forms. But of course, Buber introduces a catch to all of this. And it is a pretty heartbreaking one.
Yeah, what he terms the exalted melancholy of our fate.
Right.
It is the tragedy that every single thou in our world must inevitably degrade back into an it.
Always.
But why? Like, why can't we just stay in that pure, unmediated relation forever? Once you truly meet the tree or truly meet your partner, why do we always fall out of it?
It really comes down to human limitation and the biological necessity of survival. We simply do not have the cognitive or spiritual stamina to hold pure relation indefinitely.
It would just be too much.
Yeah. If you lived entirely in the I thou, you'd be paralyzed by the infinite depth of every leaf, every rock, and every person you encountered. You literally wouldn't be able to function.
Right.
So the genuine contemplation has to end. You look at the tree, you have that profound meeting, but eventually entropy takes over, and you go back to analyzing its leaves to see if it needs water.
Or like with human relationships, the profound meeting with your partner ends, and you go back to negotiating who is taking out the trash.
Exactly. The thou becomes an object among objects again.
Okay, let me push back on this a little bit because it feels a bit damning.
Yeah.
Like, are we supposed to feel guilty for living in the I-it world? Should we be walking around treating our groceries and our spreadsheets as divine encounters?
No, not at all. Buber explicitly defends the I-it world. It is the absolute foundation of human progress.
Okay, good, because that sounded exhausting.
Right. You cannot build a functional society on I thou alone. The world of it is where the scientist cures disease, where the statesman organizes infrastructure, and where the economist plans supply chains.
Right. You can't run a hospital if the surgeons are just staring deeply into the infinite souls of the patients. Someone has to actually measure the anesthesia.
Exactly. The danger isn't that the I-it world exists. The danger is when the I-it world completely swallows the I thou world.
Ah, I see.
Buber offers a pretty devastating critique of modern man here. He notes that we try to survive the exhaustion of modern life by dividing our existence into two neat compartments.
Right. Institutions and feelings.
Yes.
Institutions being the outside world, like our jobs, our politics, the economy.
Right. It's the complicated marketplace where things are used and processed. But that drains us, obviously, so we retreat into feelings, the inside world. We sit in our armchairs and indulge our emotions just to recover.
But Buber points out the trap here. Neither of these yields true personal life.
No, not at all.
Institutions are purely it. But feelings, because they're just internal indulgences focused entirely on our own experience, they're also just it.
It's all consumption.
Right. I might come home from a soul-crushing corporate job, sit on my couch, and swipe through a screen to feel entertained or outraged. I might feel like I'm engaging with humanity, but I'm really just consuming emotions as commodities.
Yep. True community doesn't happen just because people share feelings. It requires people standing in a living mutual relation.
So if pure relation is so fleeting and easily lost to this necessary but, dangerous I-it world, we have to figure out where we got the capacity for relation in the first place.
Right. If the modern world is so hostile to it, how do we even know how to do it?
Well, Buber's answer is that it is our original state. Quote, "In the beginning is relation."
And he looks for linguistic proof in primitive cultures to show that relation actually predates the invention of isolated objects.
Yes. He points to the Zulu word for far away, which I found amazing. It isn't a geometric measurement of distance at all.
No, not at all.
The word literally translates to, there where someone cries out, "Oh, mother, I am lost."
The vocabulary isn't built on a grid. It is embedded entirely in human longing and connection.
And he brings up this incredibly specific 7-syllable Fuegian word. Instead of having a simple noun for a concept, this one word means they stare at one another, each waiting for the other to volunteer to do what both wish but are not able to do.
Think about the mechanics of that. The language itself is just a thick web of communal tension.
Right, it's not a thing, it's an event between people.
The individuals in that language don't even have a finished, independent existence yet. The original unity, the lived relation, comes first. Analysis and discrete nouns come later.
Man, compare that to our modern vocabulary. We invent words like ghosting or doom scrolling or influencer, words that specifically define isolation, one-way extraction, and basically treating other humans as content.
It's totally flipped. We have completely inverted the linguistic foundation. We have lost what Buber calls the a priori of relation.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Buber proves this innate drive using human development. Babies.
Oh, this is one of the best parts.
When a baby is developing, they don't look at a woolly teddy bear process it neurologically as a discrete object in space, and then decide to interact with it.
No, not at all.
Before they can even perceive an isolated object, they are reaching out. Their little hands are sketching delicately in the empty air. They are longing to meet something. The instinct for relation comes before the object is even understood.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, Buber is describing the inborn thou.
The inborn thou.
Yeah. We are born intimately connected to the universe. We emerge from an undivided primal world in the womb. As we mature, we step out into the cool light of creation, and our eye solidifies by actually stepping away from that web.
So the common assumption that we start as isolated individuals who then have to, figure out how to build relationships out of nothing, that is completely backwards.
Completely backward. Our isolation is the leftover residue when the primal relationship is broken apart.
Oh, wow.
The effort to reestablish relation is our fundamental driving instinct. That is why a baby will treat a boiling kettle or a random speck of dust as a conversation partner. The brain is basically desperate to actualize the inborn thou.
It's looking for a meeting everywhere.
Exactly. And it is entirely through these relational events, meeting the mother, meeting the toy, meeting the world, that the child's I condenses and becomes real.
So you don't have an I that goes out looking for a thou.
No. You find a thou, and in the collision of that meeting, your I is born.
But then, of course, the exalted melancholy kicks in.
Right on cue.
The child's brain develops, the I separates more completely just to survive, and it learns to look at the teddy bear not as a conversational partner, but as an object made of fuzz and stuffing. The thou drops back into an it.
And we basically bounce between these profound, fleeting moments of connection and the cold reality of treating everything as an object for the rest of our lives.
Unless we look at the one relation Buber claims never degrades, the one thou that never becomes an it.
Right, the eternal thou, which is his term for God.
The translator's intro makes a massive point about how present-focused his theology is here. Buber isn't talking about God as an object of faith safely locked away in a historical text.
No, you don't find this God by retreating to a monastery to escape the exhausting I-it world.
You find it directly through the world. Buber writes that every particular thou is a glimpse through to the eternal thou.
Right. Every time we truly meet a tree or a friend or a piece of art, we are looking out toward the fringe of the eternal.
Wait, I have to push back on this because it sounds like a massive semantic loophole.
How so?
Well, if I don't believe in God, if I'm a strict materialist, isn't Buber just redefining my moments of deep psychological focus and slapping the label God on them to fit his own religious worldview? Does this entire system collapse if the listener isn't religious?
This raises an important question, and it is one Buber directly anticipates. He doesn't rely on a semantic loophole at all. He relies on the mechanics of the relation itself.
Okay, explain that.
He explicitly writes that if a person abhors the very name of God and believes themselves to be completely godless, they are not excluded.
Really?
Yeah. If that same person gives their whole being to addressing the thou of their life, if they truly enter into pure, unselfish relation with the world without holding back, they are actually addressing God.
Wow. Okay, so the label is entirely irrelevant to the mechanism.
Exactly. It is about the posture of your being. It's about whether you are willing to step out of the safe, calculated world of experiencing and using and actually risk the vulnerability of meeting what is in front of you. God in this text isn't a noun you analyze. God is the reality of the meeting itself.
So let's synthesize the monumental journey we've been on today. We started with the everyday trap of treating the world as a giant catalog, a collection of its to be measured, extracted, and consumed.
Right.
We've explored how breaking out of that catalog into the mutual reality of the I-thou encounter literally alters the architecture of who we are. And we've traced that relational instinct from the earliest grasp of a child's hand in empty air, all the way to the divine meaning that underpins reality.
It is a complete ontological shift. I mean, we are not isolated observers just processing data. We are beings forged in relation.
So, to you listening right now,
Yeah.
think about the mechanics of your own day. How much of your biological energy is spent accumulating, analyzing, and experiencing it?
Probably a lot.
What would actually happen if you paused to meet the world, to look at an animal or a colleague, and allow them to exist entirely outside of how they benefit your schedule or your emotions?
As Buber reminds us in the text, how we are educated by children and by animals.
Yes, because they haven't yet built the walls of the I-it world. They haven't forgotten how to relate.
I think we have to leave you with one final thought, building on the core mechanism we discussed today. The fact that the I requires the thou to fully form.
Right.
If your deepest, most authentic self is only activated in the presence of a true thou, we have to ask what happens to human identity in a hyper-digital modern age.
Ooh, that's a